shout in the east, strike in the west is a maxim attributed to Mao Zedong. That is why you see Pangong so in the western sector one day, to Yangtze in the eastern sector the other day, and Barahoti in the central sector is obviously always under the Chinese crossfire. As China feels that its global order is closer to achieving its global order, it is putting India under a lot of tactical and strategic stress along the LAC. Now, in order to understand that how the LAC is fast becoming LOC 2.0 with multiplied dangers, as China is using both brute military force and deception to unilaterally alter the LAC, it is very important to understand the unrestricted warfare used by the PLA. Because if a country needs to respond to an aggressor such as China, which is hell-bent on expansionism, it is very important to understand their mindset. And who better than General VP Malik to take us through the Chinese mindset and what it basically intends to do at the LAC, both strategically and tactically. Welcome to Samvaad, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayank. It's always a pleasure to have informed discussions with you on all strategic as well as security issues. Thank you.
It's an honor, sir. Sir, in January, there was a DG's conference where there was a paper submitted which stated that India has lost control of 26 out of the 65 patrolling points in Eastern Ladakh. And the reason for this was given that because of restrictive or no patrolling by the Indian security forces. Now, the paper also goes on to state that because of this restrictive or no patrolling, the border is basically shifting towards the Indian side as the buffer zones are created on the Indian side. What is your assessment of the situation, sir?
Mayank, this was tabled during the DG's conference, this particular paper. It was written obviously by some policemen from Ladakh Union Territory and maybe even some ITBP officers may have been involved. But soon after the conference, this particular paper was removed from their whole papers all the way. Also, there was an explanation given by the Army headquarters on this. My own feeling is that there is half-truth in this particular paper, which has part of it has appeared in the newspapers, and that's what I have read. Half-truth is because, firstly, let me explain that all these patrolling points are along the line of actual control as marked on the map and given to the security forces, that is the Army and the ITBP. And the paper speaks about 26 out of 65. The fact is that there are a number of patrolling points where we are not able to approach now because of the Chinese having denied our patrolling to those areas. Now, it's not so many of them, but only some of them. They've talked about 26 out of 65, but I think it is more in the area of PP9 and PP15. In that area, the denial is much more. This is, I'm talking of the Y Junction and Rakinala area, in that area. The Chinese have come forward and now they are not permitting us to go to the original PP where we were going. But let me also say that there are certain areas where the Chinese also cannot come to the areas where they were coming earlier. For example, Busse area. They were earlier coming, they were sending their patrols, but now they have been denied to come to that area. Now, this is part of the moratorium on patrolling which has been agreed to between the two sides at the Corps Commanders Conference. And so there are certain areas where we cannot go now, where we used to go earlier, and there are certain areas where they cannot come on our side. And of course, I think we are more affected than them if you look at the total number of areas. But this is a temporary moratorium on patrolling, which has been, sometimes people call it buffer zones. It is in that area. And yes, to some extent, you can say that there are areas where we used to go earlier, dominate those patrolling points. Today, we cannot go. So whether you would consider that as a loss of area, perhaps so, because now we are not able to go forward in those areas. But it is not as much as it is made out in the paper which was written in the DG's conference. The other thing I must mention here, these are all temporary features. You know, I have seen it over the years. After 86 Guangdong incident that took place, at that time also we had certain areas where we were not patrolling. Both sides were not patrolling. But the moment something happens, then people forget about the no patrolling zones, so to say, or the so-called buffer zone, and then they move forward. So this action which has been taken or agreed to at the Corps Commanders level is perhaps only temporary, and it is denying certain areas to us. Similarly, it is denying certain areas to the Chinese also.
So you spoke of the Corps Commander level talks. We have had 17 round of Corps Commander level talks. And after the 16th, there was the question of disengagement at PP-15 in the Gogra Springs area. But we see a lot of military mobilization on the Chinese side. They are bringing their military, they are building airfields and dual use villages. So do the Chinese actually have the intent to disengage, let alone de-escalate?
Mayank, earlier we were all envisaging that first there will be disengagement, and then that would be followed by de-escalation. You know, these are the two terms that we have been using. Now, even after 17 round of talks that we've had at the Corps Commanders level, and of course there have been many at the diplomatic level also, the fact is that there are two major areas where disengagement has not taken place. One is Depsang area, and the other is the area of Damchok, the Charding La, that area. Again, we have not been able to resolve that. The talks, I believe, are going on in those areas. So, since the disengagement has not been completed, and there is no trust level left after 2020, particularly. So therefore, both sides are not prepared to vacate any area or pull back their troops. And in addition to that, as you know, that since 2020, when Galwan Valley incident took place, both sides have now posted additional troops all along the line of actual control. Almost about 60,000 troops on either side. That is one. And the other aspect is that there has been a lot of improvement in infrastructure, particularly on the Chinese side. We have also done it, but they have done much more. In fact, now they have got accommodation built, which can take about 120,000 troops there permanently. So looking at the kind of improvement that they have done in their infrastructure, etc., and some that we have also done, the de-escalation, I think, is still far away. I don't see it happening so soon. At the moment, as I say, the effort is to disengage troops from these two major points that I mentioned, Depsang and the Charding La area near Damchok.
Even before, I would say literally the ink had dried on the disengagement agreement after the 16th round, we had this incursion in Yangtze. So obviously, I mean, various sectors are being opened at times and at place convenient to the PLA. What is your assessment of this strategy of the PLA?
Yeah, I think it's an important point. While the talks have been going on, as you mentioned, and yet the Chinese have not hesitated to try and intrude in the area of Yangtze, which is on the eastern side. Let me first explain. Yangtze is a plateau area very close to the line of actual control on our side. And there are certain grazing areas also involved in this particular area. This is dominated by Tulungla, which we had occupied post Guangdong operation that was conducted in 86 when the Chinese had intruded in Guangdong area. So we had occupied that. And that dominates the whole area. And that is why it is important to us, the area of Tulungla and Yangtze area.
Mhm.
Now, you're right that while the talks were going on in December last year, these people, almost with about 300 troops armed with their clubs and other things, they tried to intrude, and then they were thrown back by the aggressive action that was taken by our own troops. We managed to strengthen our post there. And so this has been, I would say, a thorn in the flesh of the Chinese ever since we occupied it in 1986. And they have attempted so many times, even during Kargil war, I must mention to you, that they had tried to occupy this whole area, but they were thrown back. They were asked, they vacated after some time. So most of the time we have been talking to each other and they go back, but now that trust is not there. So when they come armed with their batons and lathis and all kinds of crude weapons, so then we don't permit them. And so this area will remain, I think, an area where we have to remain alert all the time. And I would say that perhaps the Chinese will also continue to try and intrude in this area because they claim to be there, while we say that no, it's on our side of the line of actual control, and therefore it is us. So we can expect even more trouble in the years to come.
So whenever we have seen since Galwan, whenever they have tried to intrude, I mean, they have been using the Stone Age sort of mentalities, stone clubs, stones, and all sort of barbed clubs. So, and whereas we have these agreements since 1990s where military forces not to be used, forces not to be used to alter the LAC, but this is a continuous trend now. So do you suggest that the Indian Army should now change the rules of engagement on our side rather than allowing them to take the upper hand?
I do that. The reason is that, all the agreements that we had on confidence building measures along the line of actual control, the Chinese have violated, particularly, I would say, in 2020, where, we had suffered 20 casualties in Galwan Valley scuffle that took place. And there have been scuffles which have been taken on. After all, people do get killed if they are hit by such crude weapons also. People get killed when there is stone pelting, etc. The other thing is that while they have violated all these norms that were established, confidence building measures, why are we expecting our soldiers to fight with such weapons? The soldiers don't fight it. Even during peacetime, when somebody violates a particular area and tries to intrude, the sentry has the power to shoot to kill. Even at the airport, for example, if you try and enter one of the Air Force stations and he warns you don't come any further and you try and intrude into that area, the sentry has the power to shoot and kill. So I feel that it is being unfair to our troops to expect them to fight with these crude weapons as these people have tried to do that. And I feel that we should get back to our norms of shooting to kill if the warning is not heeded to. If we give a warning and if the other person doesn't heed to that and continues to intrude, then we should give the authority to the soldier as it is expected even in peace area. So I am in favor of changing the rules of engagement and putting down strictly that, look, you have the authority to shoot to kill after you have given the warning, and yet when the adversary wants to continue its intrusion.
No, obviously, sir, because we see that, I mean, as we know, any intruder, even to a cantonment area inside the country,
Right.
first one and then shot at. So obviously, this has to change now. And maybe, sir, this confusion also stems from the fact that there is a lot of talk about perception of the LAC. Now, we as somebody who analyze or who basically study the subject, don't understand. If there is an LAC, a defined LAC, pending final agreement on the border, there is an LAC. So why this confusion in media, even strategic circles, of our perception of the LAC? Obviously, this is going to lead to a lot of confusion on the forces on the ground also.
You are right, Mayank, because it is causing confusion, particularly in the minds of our civilian citizens who do not know much about these issues all along the line of actual control. Now, the fact is that the maps have been marked with LAC by the government of India. And those maps with marked LAC have been given to the security forces, and they have been asked that, look, you have to defend area up to that particular line. Now we have established patrolling posts. In certain areas, we have a larger physical strength. In some areas, we have lesser physical strength. And when the intrusion takes place in today's world, when there is so much of transparency with the help of satellite imagery and with the help of drones, etc., everybody knows, and it gets known immediately that there has been some intrusion. The newspapers will bring it out. So this whole aspect of their perception of the LAC and our perception of the LAC is causing confusion in the minds of Indian public. I believe that the government has given a particular line marked on the map. So why don't we declare it that, look, we have asked our security forces to defend up to that particular line. And if there is an intrusion, they are expected to take action. So this whole confusion that takes place, and then people, particularly in the politics, they try and make noise, unnecessary noise, sometimes even denigrating the armed forces for not doing their jobs and all. This is very unfair. So my own feeling is that we have marked the LAC, given that on the maps to the security forces. They are expected to defend it. So let that be clear. Let there be no confusion about it, and let them also know that, look, this is our area and we are going to defend it.
So after the military core commander level talks, a statement always comes from the Chinese side, primarily from the Chinese side, followed by the Indian side. And the Chinese always use phrases like committed to maintaining stability in the border region, maintaining peace and tranquility, whereas what we see on the ground is totally different from what they use in the documents. So is deception a part of this unrestricted warfare of the Chinese strategic PRC thought and the PLA?
Yeah, there's been a lot of propaganda talk, or Psy wars, if I can use that word, from the Chinese side. All kinds of videos are being shown on the different channels, etc. I have always believed that let's not get involved in rhetoric, political rhetoric, which often takes place both not only from the Chinese side and the Pakistan side also. I have always believed that let's go by the situation on the ground. So therefore, whatever they may be saying, their political leaders may be saying, we have to keep watching the situation on the ground and then act accordingly. So I don't believe in all this kind of nonsense which is being talked about. And as you know, despite all the talk that they are taking place, while the talks are going on, and yet they come to Yangtze in December last year. So it is worthless. And the other thing is that let's not forget the kind of deployment that has taken place, the manner in which they came in 2020. They have never spoken about why they came in 2020. and into Galwan Valley. Why they brought in so many divisions on the line of actual control? They have never spoken why they have been trying to include in certain areas. So all this rhetoric that takes place, I don't think we should believe in that, and we should go by the situation on the ground. And the situation on the ground is such today that we can't afford to take chances. I mentioned about the improvement of the infrastructure that has taken place on their side, whether these are helipads or these are airports, even the Air Force station that they have got. And let's not forget that in recent years, they have constructed a bridge. A few months ago, they have constructed a bridge across the Pangang Tso. That is the latest infrastructure that has been taken. And 120,000 troops, their billets have come very, very close to the line of actual control. That is the actual situation, and we have to go by that.
But do you see, I mean, the LAC soon getting as bad as the LOC?
Yeah, in a manner, it has taken place, although we are still not as aggressive on this LAC as we are on the LOC. But the fact is the large deployment that has taken place, and there are chances of scuffles, and there are chances of, after all, the troops are, in many places, they are eyeball to eyeball. And that is the whole idea of disengagement. But the disengagement, as I mentioned, has not taken place at certain places yet. So gradually, I do feel that the LSC is getting converted into the LOC type of situation. And unless we come to some agreement on both disengagement and de-escalation, we have to remain alert, just as we are on the LOC.
The post Galwan, we have matched, the Indian Army has matched the PLA in numbers. We have moved a lot of technology into the area. Physical infrastructure, as you said, is being built up. But as somebody who headed the Indian Army, what would be your suggestions for better management of the technical and the physical resources we have at the LSC?
Mayank, we have a very large border, over 3,500 kilometers of border with China, and that is where the LSC is. Now, you cannot deploy troops at every few yards, so to say. You know, there will be gaps. There will be large gaps, particularly in the kind of terrain that we are on which we are deployed, which we have to defend. So therefore, I think the first and the foremost priority should be our intelligence and surveillance. And we have to improve that all along the line of actual control. It is not a question of that when they come inside, we should be able to assess the situation even before they try and come inside our territory. So this is a job of the intelligence as well as the surveillance devices today we've got. So in terms of both human resource as well as the technological resource, we have to be, we must keep on having the most up-to-date technology and human resource possible. Our assessments of intelligence must be frequent, truthful. Similarly, our technology, whether it is satellite imagery or drones imagery or whatever it is, we should be able to anticipate before they enter. So the first aspect is improvement in our intelligence and surveillance all along the line of actual control. The other aspect is that today we have got ITBP deployed all along most of the areas, I would say, along the line of actual control, particularly, as you know, on the Eastern Ladakh side. On the eastern side, we have got Assam Rifles, which is deployed now. Assam Rifle, there is no problem. But in the Ladakh area and in the central sector also, where ITBP is deployed. Now, ITBP functions under the Ministry of Home Affairs, while the Army functions under the Ministry of Defense. And therefore, their reporting system is different. And that causes confusion. And that has, one has seen that earlier, and that continues. Now, we have been saying that whenever a situation is hot, then the operational control of the ITBP should come under the army, because it's the army which is expected to defend the borders, etc. But unfortunately, that has not been agreed to for whatever parochial reasons or whatever they have got. For better efficiency and for better command and control, I believe that in a hot situation as we are facing today, the ITBP operational control should come under the army in areas in central sector as well as in the Ladakh sector. That is the second one, I would say. And then, as I have said, that certain rules of engagement must be changed. We've discussed this aspect of the sticks, etc., being used. That also needs to be changed. And I've also mentioned to you about the perception part and all. These perceptions only cause confusion. We should be quite clear and straightforward. Like, look, this is the area we claim, and this is the area we will defend. And we can say that this is the area pending final solution of the border with China. So the political aspect of resolving the border, that remains intact. But till then, because we have told the security forces to defend up to that area, I think we have to be very straightforward on this, both for our own public as well as for them also, for the Chinese also to understand.
So on that note, I would like to conclude this conversation, and I would like to thank you for sparing time for us. It has been an enriching experience, and we would like to come back to you very soon on another topic. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mayank. As I said, it's always a pleasure to discuss in such an informative manner, because you understand these things much more than many anchors that I have seen. It's always a pleasure to discuss these issues with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir.